Hi everyone. So we've already seen loops now, and in this video I just wanted to discuss a couple of things, especially about the nested loops, and I want to discuss some popular questions that are asked either in multiple choice questions or to write programs. So the first thing that could be asked is something like this. Let's say I have um, I less than 10 and I plus plus, and here I have, let's say, just a print hello. uh, One very popular question is how many times each part of the for loop is executed. So this first part is the initialization, that's done only once. Next is the condition check. So what happens now is that since I starting from 0, this condition will be checked for I equals 0, I equals 1, I equals 2, and so on up to I equals 9. And then it'll be checked one more time when I becomes 10, and this condition will become false at that point. So if I look at it this way, I can um, I can say that it's checked for I equals 0, I equals 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are all the cases when it's true. This is true for all of these. The condition, this part becomes true for all of these cases, and then this condition is checked once again, uh, which is for I equals 10, and then it the program realizes that this condition has become false, so it gets out of the loop and comes right here. So if I have something here, it comes here. So it's being checked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 times. So even if I had something like this, it would again be checked 11 times, which is when I have I equals 1, and then it's also checked for I equals 10, for which it becomes true. So it's next checked for I equals 11, and that's when it becomes false. So it's again being checked 11 times. So this is something you should take care of. The condition is checked one extra time when it becomes false. And next comes the increment part. So for this loop, initially my I is 1, and then the increment happens once and I go here, and then the increment happens again and I go here, then another increment. So the number of increments that I have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's the number of increments that are going to happen. And how many times is the loop body going to be executed? That's obviously 10, because it'll be executed when I is 1, and then goes on executing till I is 10. So that's 10 times. When I becomes 11, this part is not executed. So that's something that's very popular in multiple choice or fill in the blank kind of questions. And another variation of this is, let's say I have another loop inside this in j equals 0, j less than 10 again, and actually let's just do j less than I, and then j plus plus, and I print a hello here. So for this loop, how many times is each part executed? So this assignment, it actually just happens once, but it's happening once for every I that I get. So I'm going to get 10 I's in here, and so this initialization part is going to happen 10 times. This condition check will happen when I is 1. It just happens the first time j is 0, so this is true. When j becomes 1, this becomes false, so it's checked twice. And then when I becomes 2, this will be done 3 times. So that one is just once, then twice, then 3 times, then 4 times, then 5 times, and so on till I becomes 10. When I becomes 10, this is again checked 11 times. So that's the number of times this is being executed. And again, I'm sure you can count the number of increments that are happening and the number of times this printf is going to print hello. So these are more theoretical questions that are often asked. Next up, what we are going to do is we are going to print a very simple pattern with nested loops, and the pattern that we want to print is right here. So here's the first example. I'm being given n equals 3, that's 3 lines, and in that case I want to print 1 star first, then 3 stars, and then 5 stars. And here's another example. When n is 4, I'm printing 1 star, then 3, then 5, then 7. So the way to start thinking about these is to first evaluate how many stars I want to print as a function of the line number. So for me, this is line number 0. That's what I'm going to take this as. This is line 1. This is line 2. If it makes things simpler for you, you can take this as line 1, but it's just more convenient for me to take this as line 0. So in this case, the number of stars that I have is 1. In this case, it's 3. In this case, it's 5. So it's actually pretty intuitive that in line I, there are a total number of 2i plus 1 stars. That's the total number of stars I have per line. So in the first line, I have 2i plus 1 will be I is 0. So this becomes 1, and I have 1 star. When I becomes 1, this thing becomes 3, and I have 3 star, and so on. So we've got this correct. The next thing to think about is how many spaces I need before my star. And again, we need to think of this as a function of the line number. So in the first line, I have 2 spaces. In the second, I have 1. In the third, I have 0. So there's a difference of 1 space in every line. So in the first line, I have 2 spaces. In the second, I have 1. In line 0, I have 2 spaces. In line 1, I have 1. In line 2, I have 0. And again, I can do this here as well. For line 0, I have 3 spaces and 1 star. For line 1, I have, actually this doesn't matter because it's not a C program. For line 1, I have 2 spaces and 3 stars. For line 2, I have 1 space and 5 stars. And for line 3, I have 0 spaces and I have 7 stars. So as you can see, this just has a difference of 1 here. So the most intuitive thing to think would be that in line I, there's something like n minus I stars, I guess. But what really happens is this is starting with a 3, whereas my n is 4. And this is my line 0. So in line 0, there's just 3 stars, whereas n is 4. So I need to subtract an additional 1 here. That's the total number of spaces that I have as a function of this line number. And let's just check this once. For this one, it's n equals 3 and I equals 0. So 3 minus 0 is again 3, minus 1 is 2. And that's correct because I have 2 spaces here. And you can keep checking this for other line numbers and different n's. This is going to hold. And for any pattern that you're given, it's easiest to think of it in terms of this, and this need not necessarily be spaces. I could have been asked to give tabs here, but again, just think of tab spaces as a function of the line number, and you should be fine. So let's go back to our program, and now I need to write a program to do this. The first thing I'll do is take an input from the user, which is n. So I just do a %d and n, and here I need to run a loop, and I'm going to run a loop from I equals 0 to I less than n, I plus plus, and this I is my line number. So I'm starting from 0, that will be line 0, and let's say n is 3. So I have line 0, line 1, and line 2. That's 3 lines. And when I becomes 3, this condition becomes false because 3 is not less than 3. So this is my line number, and the next thing that I want to do is I want to print the spaces. So what I'm going to do is for int j equals 0, and how many spaces do I need? I need n minus I minus 1 spaces. So I go from I equals 0 to I less than n minus I minus 1, and I do a j plus plus, and here I just need to do a printf and then a space, and here I need another loop for my stars. So I go from int j, and remember that since I've run this loop whatever n minus I minus 1 number of times, I've exhausted my use of the j here, so I can use j again right here. So I go from j equals 0, and then j less than, let's just check what's the number of stars that I need. It's 2i plus 1, so 2 into I plus 1, and j plus plus, and here what I need to do is just a printf and a star, and we've done this part correctly, I think. Let's just go ahead and try it out. And when I run this, it's actually waiting for some input, which is n. So let's try giving what is given in the example. So I'm going to give n equals 3, and I hit enter, and I've got everything in one line. And the reason that happened is because I've never given a line break, and where to give a line break is again a question. So if you remember, this I is my line number, and when does my I change? It's actually when do I need to change my line? So I need to change my line after I've printed whatever n minus I minus 1 spaces, and then I've printed my stars, and after that I need to change my line. But I shouldn't put my line break here, because then what it'll do is it'll print every star and then it'll give a line break. So I need to look for wherever this loop ends, and just before this loop ends I need a line break. So let's just check here, and this gives me the matching brace right here. So this is my brace. Before this brace, just before this brace, I need my line break. So all I need to do for that is hit a \n here, and let's just try this again. Let's hit enter. Again, it's waiting for some input. Let's give 3, and as you can see, it printed the pattern correctly. Let's just run it again and give it an input 4. It printed the triangle just as it's given in the example. So let's just go here. This is the triangle that I've got right here. That's 1 star, then 3, then 5, and then 7, which is exactly how it's given right here. And I can also give it some really large n, and it'll print me an entire huge triangle right here. So this is just an example of one pattern that I've done. There are a lot of different patterns that you might get. These are very popular programming questions, by the way. So you might get something like a diamond where you're supposed to print a triangle like this and another triangle below this. And you need to make sure that you don't repeat this line. So for that, you'll just have to reverse this entire loop and have two loops like that. That's something that you can try on your own, but I just wanted to show you this program, this one pattern printing program, and it also gave you a better idea about nested loops, I hope. So that's it for this video. I'll see you next time.